more divisions are on tap tonight. We are Dynasty diving through the NFC East and NFC West depth charts today on the Football Guys College Football Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the Football Guys College Football Show. Just Dynasty Hour. That's kind of what we're doing right now. We're kind of diving into it. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button. Leave a comment, too. And we appreciate it. We've been getting to those comments. And we heard you last week. You said, hey, we want a little bit more Dynasty-centric. So let's get it. Let's get into the Dynasty-centric stuff. We'll be talking at least, a big, overarching theme of each for the Dynasty for the teams. We're going to start in the NFC East today. So we're going to be looking at the NFC East. And unfortunately, the Eagles somehow landed first. So we're going to talk about the Eagles begrudgingly as a Dallas fan for me. But we're going to go through here. And as always, you're going to be going through their ADP, where they're getting drafted at, and our biggest questions moving into the season, plus their dynasty value. Quarterback is Jalen Hurts and Marcus Mariota. Running back, we have DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and you're looking at that. Swift has running back 16 ADP right now. A.J. Brown at wide receiver, Devonta Smith, tight end Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll. So you're looking at those guys. I think the big question mark for me is Devonta Smith, Jeff. So if you're looking at this wide receiver room, he has a wide receiver 12 ADP, and he's kind of hotly debated out there in terms of dynasty. Like, what do you rank him as in terms of are you comfortable drafting him as your wide receiver 1? Because in some cases he might be. You're probably more comfortable at wide receiver 2. What is your feelings on Devonta?
I really want to know, and actually my big question is, what kind of passing role does DeAndre Swift take over? Because last year the Eagles had the fewest passes to running backs in the entire league. Last year we had a perfect storm of point scoring for A.J. Brown, for Devonta Smith, because they were healthy all year long. Dallas Goedert missed time. That allowed Devonta Smith to solidify himself even more, and the Eagles ran a very, very tight target tree. There were only 4 wide receivers that got targets on the entire team last year. So last year we had a perfect storm for scoring for A.J. Brown and for Devonta Smith. And the Devonta Smith was, I believe, like wide receiver 9-10 there, but it was real close to wide receiver 12. And so that's my concern on Smith right now, is that you're drafting him at his ceiling, because I don't know how much more beyond that he can go outside of A.J. Brown missing major time. And if A.J. Brown were missing major time, does that change the complexion of this Eagles offense? Do they lean into the run more with Jalen Hurts and the run more with the other running backs? The big question, again, circling back to DeAndre Swift, is how much of that does take the rushing off Jalen Hurts' plate, using Swift in the quick passing game and kind of shifting those types of things around. And as they do that, is Hurts getting rid of the ball faster and not allowing Smith those opportunities to work downfield instead?
Yeah, this one's tough for me, because while both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were productive last year, we're looking at a team that Jalen Hurts had less than 500 pass attempts last year. It was just an incredibly efficient offense. And like Jeff said, all of the targets kind of filtered to 4 main guys in the offense. Shane Steichen is gone. And that's one aspect of this offense that I think people in Dynasty are kind of ignoring a bit. I think, you just look at the Eagles and you say, well, they're going to do that same exact thing. That's not necessarily true. Now, there is some buzz that they expect Jalen Hurts to take a step up as a passer, which will allow him once again to, maybe throw the ball a little bit more. Maybe it's not as rush heavy. But in that sense, like Jeff's saying, I think a lot of that those targets would go to DeAndre Swift, maybe another tight end works in, things like that. So I just get a little nervous with Devonta Smith that high. I'd honestly say I get a little bit nervous with A.J. Brown that high, simply because I do think both are very good players. I think Devonta Smith would be a 1 on most teams. But it's just the volume has to come for this offense for them to continuously, be that efficient and continuously finish inside the top 12.
Yeah, I was looking at Smith's my dynasty ranking for him. I actually have him at 16, so I'm definitely a little lower than the 12 ADP where he's at right now. So just from a trade aspect, it might be a time to maybe move him. I don't know how to say he's definitely a sell, but I think it's just all market dependent based on your micro market there. But there's some guys maybe he's getting valued higher than and I know we like Drake London, all of us here on the show. There's some area, there's some maneuverability you can do with those guys. Are we in on Swift? Where is my Swift? It's just the Swift truthers here. I know I am the guy that's I don't know. Everybody just accompanies with Swift. I'm glad because Darnold is getting. But Swift, running back 16. I think when you look at Miles Sanders, he was that running back in that area, 16 to 20 in terms of last year. I think hurts the running backs, right? In terms of like the touchdowns, especially in the red zone. You're going to see that. I know that Christian likes Rashad Penny. He's always kind of been a Penny guy. So this is going to be the battle between Swift and Penny this year, between me and Christian. Who would you rather have in this backfield, like moving forward? Would you rather have Penny or Swift, Christian?
I mean, just from a talent perspective, it's still Swift. I was also a Swift guy. I've always been a Swift guy. I think the Lions misused him, but I think that there were some pieces of his game that with the Lions rushing attack for most of his time there, they kind of didn't put him in positions to succeed. Now with this Eagles offense, assuming that they do keep most of the same offensive concepts and offensive principles, DeAndre Swift is going to have a lot of space to work. And so we look at what Miles Sanders did for this team last year and you say, okay, well, that could be a route for some nice fantasy success because DeAndre Swift, I like Miles Sanders as a pass catcher, but DeAndre Swift is a different level of pass catcher than Miles Sanders. So, but at RB16, the price in like a dynasty startup is a bit much for me because where we're at with Swift is there's still certainly some uncertainty with is he going to continue to be on the Eagles following this year? He does not have a big contract or anything like that. And so if he leaves that really good situation, we know what that floor kind of looks like. So I do get nervous. I do like Penny at that ADP of RB51 because I think of the guys, I think he is the most talented just runner. But I do like Swift in terms of like he'll probably get the most work. I think Penny will be the nice change of pace back, especially this year. But none of this, there's no piece of this backfield that's solidified following 2023. And so for Dynasty, it's a bit nerve wracking.
For Dynasty, I don't want DeAndre Swift on my team, to be honest with you. I think that this is a sell opportunity with everybody buying in on this Eagles offense. You look at DeAndre Swift. So Jahmyr Gibbs went early, middle, round 1 in the NFL draft. And so the NFL had an entire day of DeAndre Swift sitting there and no deal was done until Saturday to move him to the Philadelphia Eagles. And so that kind of tells you where he sits across the league. If he has another injury-plagued season, where is he? Is he a player that is going to have to sign one of these contracts like a Damian Harris or something like that? He's signing right about the minimum or just above the minimum to try to rehab his stock? Is he landing into a very crowded backfield? I mean, what's the future look like? And I think that you're presented with a major sell opportunity because of the buzz around being with the Philadelphia Eagles and all the goodness surrounded in that. Whereas, I mean, this could be a 3-headed backfield, 4-headed backfield with Jalen Hurts taking that rushing Rashad Penny, and I think Gainwell is still going to be involved in as well. And so I think that you're kind of being a little bit optimistic to buy into Swift as being the major presence in this backfield because that breaks Eagles' tendencies, and that looking at the talent around him, I think it's just more likely that they're all going to split it because that's what they've done historically.
I mean, you make good points, but we play on vibes on this show. So my vibe is Swift's going to be rolling this year, and I'm all aboard the Swift. I have to be. I have too many shares. Really quick, just because we're going to make sure we get to every team today with enough time. AJ Brown, wide receiver 4. Maybe this is his ceiling, his trade ceiling. Like I think this might be the time to get out of it. Waddle, Wilson, some of these other guys behind him. Where are we going with him, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I have him at wide receiver 5 in Dynasty. So, I think that this would be an opportunity if I can flip him for Waddle plus. I think I'm pretty happy with that because I currently have Waddle ahead of him in Dynasty. So, and I know that that's about his value, but I think you can, there is, like Jeff said, there's a lot of buzz on this offense right now. And I think that we're kind of set up for them to disappoint in 2023. And we know how that would impact their Dynasty value moving forward.
Yeah, major question on him is efficiency because the volume wasn't there. He was insanely efficient. And so that is what translated into fantasy scoring. And that's what got him up to, I think, wide receiver 6 in PPR was where he finished. Now, if he keeps that efficiency and they do throw the ball more and he gets a major target increase, I mean, you could be making the argument that you're selling low on him. He could end up being the wide receiver 1 overall, granted how efficient he was last year with increased volume. But I do think I think you're on the right path there, that it's an opportunity because it's very rare that you see players at his age increase their dynasty value, and I think he definitely did over last offseason.
Okay, pick one. Who would you tier down for? Wait, so you're trading Brown. Would it be Amon-Ra? And obviously it's plus something. Amon-Ra, Olave, London, or Garrett, yes, but let's Amon-Ra, Olave, London, or JSN. Who would you feel more comfortable tearing down for?
Olave for me.
Olave?
Yeah, we knew that answer. For me, it'd be London.
In there.
Oh, yeah, but Christian has a hot take about the Saints. I'm not going to let him just throw it out here yet. But we're going to get it on the sphere. All right, let's move on to the Cowboys. We didn't really talk about Hurts. Hurts is really good. All right, let's go to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott right now is quarterback 9. I think it's interesting right now what's going on with him in Dynasty. So we're definitely going to take a look there. Running back room, Tony Pollard really is that. Running back 14, Malik Davis, little guy Deuce Vaughn, Rojo's out there. Wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, he's wide receiver 3 right now in Dynasty. Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jalen Tolbert hanging on to that roster spot. And in tight end, Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, Peyton Hendershot. The only guy getting drafted in that tight end room right now is Schoonmaker in terms of ADP, like past 20 rounds. Ferguson could be a fun late add. But I want to go to Jeff first. Dak Prescott, quarterback 9. I don't necessarily agree with quarterback 9. I've seen him go as low as quarterback 13 or 14 in some dynasty drafts this year. Where are you at with Dak? Solid QB 2?
Yeah, fringe. I don't love him being my quarterback 1, that's for sure. But let's see. I'm going to pull up my ranks here real quick. I apologize. I should be more polished.
That is terrible podcasting.
I have him quarterback 12. To be honest with you, so in Dynasty and kind of sitting there, I don't buy in that the rushing is going to come back, and I'm concerned about the passing volume diminishing because Mike McCarthy said it that they want to. I just don't know if the backfield is at the point to really make that happen, and arguably he's got better receivers than he's had for a minute.
Same with you.
Yeah. If I have teams with Dak as my QB1, as a holdover from a while back, I'm panicking right now. I'm selling the farm to go get one of those guys, and the tiers above him, he's my 12. I just think, we've talked about the Cowboys offense a bit on here, and our skepticism that they're going to hold some of those efficiencies. And I think Dak's a fantastic NFL quarterback. I'm not certain that it's going to translate to fantasy points, moving forward, especially with that change in offensive coordinator. So I get nervous. Sorry, Kevin.
I traded Dak in the week. So I traded Dak and Calvin Ridley, and I got back Lamar Jackson a couple months ago.
I would do that all day. I think I have him at 12 too. I have Dak right at 12 in that weird tier between Bryce and CJ and Anthony Richardson and that group, because you know what Dak is, but the ceiling on those guys, they could outperform him. And I have Deshaun over Dak as well. So I'd be much more comfortable with Deshaun Watson as my QB1 than Dak Prescott. And I think that's just one of those things where you're looking at where Dak. I hate that I have to admit that Jeff kind of was right last year about Kirk Cousins. Dak has that Kirk Cousins type of fantasy-ish, in terms of the ceiling there. And I think that's just value right now. And I don't see him getting back into that top 8 category. It's really hard for me to see him that, especially with that offense, man. I'm telling you guys. I guess the other guy we got to talk about is Tony Pollard, running back 14, 26 years old. He's playing on a franchise tag this year. Could move on. You're probably Tony Pollard feels like that asset that you're drafting for a 1-year go for it dynasty, but at running back 14, you do have to put some significant capital in him. Where are you at with him, Jeff? Do you feel like he's just kind of that 1-year stopgap, and then you hope he signs somewhere else next year, or do you feel like maybe long term they'll keep him?
I think you're seeing the opportunity for increased production, and that's what you've been waiting for years for Tony Pollard. I think you can make the argument that despite his age, he still has a lot of tread on his tires, and he could have a massive year this year where that really would propel him into either the Cowboys giving him a contract extension, which you'd love to see because the rest of their backfield, absent hitting somebody in the draft or bringing in a veteran, they're very, very much set up for Tony Pollard to lead this backfield, or because of his passing ability, somebody buy in on that and make him a focal point of the offense. And so I have him at running back 10 in Dynasty because I'm pretty bullish on him, to be honest with you. But I do think that Malik Davis is going to be very involved, and absent them signing somebody. And that is a guy that if you are digging deep on, he's on far too many waiver wires, to be honest with you, and even in deep Dynasty leagues. And I've been, even at this point, still being able to pick him up this past week in a couple different places by just leagues that have been unplugged, or maybe you got dropped after the rookie draft, things like that. And so make sure to scour your waiver wire for players like that right now, because this is the time that those types of moves can really turn out around and pay value.
Yeah, Tony Pollard, I think you put it best, Kevin, that I think you're going for it with him, but I don't think that you are setting your roster up properly if you have to draft him at RB14. And so in Dynasty startups this offseason, I've taken Tony Pollard a total of 0 times. I get a little nervous about, once again, this entire offense, but I also just don't think that this is the backfield that they're going to roll out. I know they walked away from Zeke because of the contract, but if they can turn that into a cheaper deal for a guy like Dalvin Cook, I don't see why they wouldn't do something like that. And, offseason is still, we have a lot of time left for something like that to happen. So I think we're looking at the opportunity. Now, the flip side is that we waited for years for Austin Eckler to get out of Melvin Gordon's, shadow. And then when he did, now he's, finishing inside the top 3. So, this is one that it's your belief in the player. And I believe in the player, but I also don't know what he is past 2023. So I'm just nervous about the Cowboys. I'm going to say that probably about every single one that we talk about here.
Running back 10, Jeff. Really? You have them that high, huh?
I think I moved it down just now a little bit.
Okay. I was going to say running back 10 is pretty tough. I got him at running back 17, where I feel like I'm more comfortable with him because, when I'm looking at my rankings, I try for Dynasty rankings, I don't want to do too far out. We can't project 3 years out, but I do think there's a real possibility he's not on Dallas next year, because as a Dallas fan, they really don't want to pay the running backs anymore. I think they got burnt with Zeke, and I think that's a realistic thing. And I think Pollard wants to move on. He's going to want to get that payday. I don't know if these guys will. Any love for Deuce Vaughn at all? You got any love for Deuce and running back 58? No,
absolutely not.
Okay. All right. Any other things? The thing I will say about the tight end position, I think they're going to use Jake Ferguson a lot more than people think. And if he's really late in your draft and you're tight end 3 or 4 in that area, that might be a good shot. I think the target share all around is going to be pretty even among those tight ends. I know they like Schoonmaker. They draft them in the second round capital. I think second round, I'm pretty sure. And so when you're looking at that, you could draft him, but I think all around, with that room there, it's going to be there. Wide receivers, anything there, guys?
I really like Michael Gallup, to be honest with you. When I ran my projections, I was very surprised at where Michael Gallup ended up placing. And every indication is that he's looks much better and he's healthier this year. And I think one injury to CeeDee Lamb or to Brandon Cooks, and he could be, if Lamb is out of the lineup, Gallup could be the number 1 wide receiver in this offense.
Yep. Oh, I opened my mouth to say that same exact thing. He's the one person I'm not nervous about at that price point. I've scooped him everywhere I possibly can. So
I've been burned so much on Michael Gallup. Please just be good, because I've been trading late seconds for you your entire career, buddy. So I would appreciate you popping out there. That would be great. I do think a year removed from that injury, though. That was really bad. That was a late injury too. And it's going to take him some time there. Again, though, I temper my expectations with this offense. With Schottenheimer, those guys being there, I temper your expectations a little bit. Although CD is going to get targeted all over the place. So I don't necessarily see that being there. All right, let's go to the New York Giants. So the New York Giants coming in, they were kind of the revelation last year, made the playoffs. Daniel Jones kind of solidified himself, I guess, as a solid QB2 in Superflex Dynasty drafts. He's getting drafted as quarterback 16 right now. And in ADP, you're going to have to take him, generally speaking, into the second, maybe third in that area. Running backs, you got Saquon Barkley, running back 5. So I definitely want to hit on that. So running back 5, Matt Breida is there. Eric Gray is getting drafted as running back 68. Then this wide receiver room is just a mess. So yeah, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson. They have the same dude. They have the same receiver the profiles all the way through there. And then tight end, Waller and Bellinger. And again, everybody's favorite tight end sleeper, Daniel Bellinger, gets over, just kind of gets, basically just taken out of the picture with Waller being there. Before we get into the wide receivers and tight end room, Barkley at running back 5 seems aggressive. He's kind of holding out, maybe. There's some question marks there. the injury history, older running back. You as soon as you draft him, it feels like one of those analogies: the car driving off the lot. You just bought that car at 38,000, and it's depreciated in value. Is that you're not touching him, right, Jeff? Because I know you. You are not touching Saquon Barkley in dynasty drafts.
No. I actually moved off Saquon in most everywhere that I had him last off season, and like I flipped him for like T Higgins in one league, and like did trades like that. And so I don't think I have Saquon anywhere in dynasty, to be honest with you.
I'm scooping him everywhere. He's my RB5. I'm cool with this because I think one thing about the injury is it did, take a year off of him taking hits. And now they've been able to put together a scheme that takes advantage of Barkley. I mean, we saw him succeed again last year. And so I know there's the holdout. I'm not really worried about that. It's very, very rare that those things extend into the season. I think Le'Veon Bell is one of the only instances of that. So, and when you look at, we're about to talk about the wide receivers. When you look at that, like, you feel pretty comfortable that Barkley is going to finish, around the RB. I mean, I think he's got a ceiling of RB1 still. And so when I consider that at RB5, I know he's starting to get up there in age, but just him and Nick Chubb are the two like older guys that I'm still fairly in on right now.
I struggle with Barkley. I know where you're coming from. Chubb is the dude I'm all over. Like I will gladly go get Chubb. Barkley, I don't know, for some reason I'm really nervous about him moving forward because Chubb's value is a little lower, and running back 5 is tough, especially when we think of like Gibbs and some of these guys maybe going after him. I have a hard time drafting Barkley over Gibbs. Like to me, that's where I come from into that area. I do like Eric Gray at running back 68, but this isn't Eric Gray pro show here. So like just grab him late. Just go grab him there. All right, let's get in the wide receiver room, boys. Let's talk about this room. Is Paris Campbell an option again? Like, are we going down this Paris Campbell? Because when you look at ADP, he doesn't really have one. So we're talking about like late 2025, depending on where the draft's at. I guess the question is, who do you feel comfortable drafting here? We talked about a little last week. Is it the cheapest option? Like, just we're going to go to the cheapest one and just hope he goes? Does Hyatt have a outside path of maybe being that deep threat guy with Jones who may struggle, but when you're looking at his ability to kind of pass it deep, his accuracy maybe gets a little bit better. Where are you going with this room, Jeff?
Isaiah Hodgins, to be honest with you. I think the emergence last year, I think the trust with Daniel Jones, I think the way that Daniel Jones wants to play the game, I think it plays very well into Isaiah Hodgins' game. When I look at the receiver room here, there's a lot of different slot guys, or I think Slayton and Jalen Hyatt kind of do the same job potentially in this offense. And then Paris Campbell and I think Wandale, Sterling Shepard kind of do the same thing as well. I think Hodgins stands out as the guy that does a little bit different. And he was a guy that Jones was looking to towards the end of last season over and over again as he got more comfortable in this offense. I think the big question in this receiver room is really Darren Waller, to be honest with you, because I think Darren Waller can easily emerge and should easily emerge as the primary target. And as long as health is there, if he's the primary target, I do kind of expect the rest of this room to get kind of scattered around because given injuries, given the way that the team kind of plays, and Brian Daboll really liked 4 wide receiver sets in Buffalo. I think you're just going to get outside of maybe Hodgins, but I think Waller, I don't think you're going to get really one of the other guys to emerge as being that consistent guy that you're plugging into your lineup, especially in PPR formats.
I know you're a Hodgins guy, Christian. I know that's where you're going. You can just solidify that if you like.
So here's my thing with Hodgins is, do I think he has capability to fill a role this year? Absolutely. I do. I think that he has the defined role here, right? The others, I think Jeff's spot on that a lot of these guys do the same things. I think Slayton and Hyatt are going to rotate on one side. I think Hodgins is kind of stuck on the other side. But the kicker here is that Darren Waller also does line up outside. And so which one of those guys does he take off the field? I'd have to guess it's Hodgins personally. The guy that I'm kind of in on, I still like Paris Campbell, but Sterling Shepard could have like one of the biggest rises in value from this group. In terms of he has no value right now. And if you look at, from minicamp, he seems to be healthy again, which I know that's short-lived most of the time with Sterling Shepard. And I know telling people to go out and get Sterling Shepard, I mean, it's free. Like you can take him with your last selection in a startup, and you can have him as a throw-in some of these deals where like, I think he could be that PPR guy that he was before. I mean, Sterling Shepard has been in the league for a very long time. For some reason, I think that he's still going to win that slot role and be present in this offense. I know.
I no love for Jalen Hyatt out here. We're not. I know Christian. No, I know you're out. Jeff, no love for him at all.
I got him in the early third in a draft, and rookie early third. I said I have to take Jalen Hyatt here.
I feel like it depends on ADP, but I do think that he could. I know that the offseason so far has not gone well for him. The reports, I don't know. Like, you depend on who you're listening to. He struggled a little bit. He was always going to need to develop a little bit in terms of route running. We knew that. I do think he offers, though, a little bit of upside in this room. And you're really looking, if Dynasty, he's not a bad play. At wide receiver 60 in Dynasty, if he can become that guy in that room and get the target share you like and moving forward the next couple of years, I don't think he's a bad play. I don't think that. Waller, I know you mentioned Waller. You talked about him. Yeah, he could be that guy that just leads everything, and then that's what you're looking for. But I really do think this offense, you think it takes a step back a little bit this year? If it really was
they had a lot more talent. I mean, last year, like they were Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins down the stretch. I mean, they've got dramatically increased their talent in the receiver room along with Waller. So, absent Saquon Barkley actually sitting out the season, I just don't think that I expect them to take a step back. But I think Daniel Jones is what he is at this point.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to Washington. Washington Commanders are up at quarterback. We have Sam Howell, North Carolina product. He's going to get his shot at quarterback 32. Jacoby Brissett is there as well, quarterback 36. So that just indicates to me people don't know what's going on in that quarterback room. Running backs, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez Jr., wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Diami Brown still hanging around that roster spot, baby, just like Jalen Tolbert. Tight end, Logan Thomas, John Bates, and Cole Turner. Nobody's really drafted them in terms of their ADP. Let's just go to the quarterback position. Let's talk about it. How it's really like these late round quarterbacks. Hal, Ritter, where are you going with these guys, and do you feel comfortable drafting him? And it's just, I hate this coaching staff because every time they talk about a player, they're like, well, they're not the starter, or there's going to be a competition. Even the running back room, we talked about that already. Are you comfortable? We're going to go to Christian because Sam Howell, he's a North Carolina fan. We got to go Christian first. Sam Howell, are you buying in again? Are you back?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was my quarterback one going into last year. He falls to day 3, and I think a lot of the reason he fell to day 3 was that North Carolina offense in terms of like they weren't sure what he could do. The reports out of minicamp are that he entered the minicamp as the QB1 and he left it more solidified as the QB1. I think Brissett is certainly there as a fail-safe if Howell crashes and burns, but I think Howell is a good quarterback. I think, with the weapons that he has with the new Eric Bieniemy offense, I think Howell is actually primed to be fantasy relevant in superflex leagues. I think he's going to be a QB2 in most weeks this year. So I mean at QB 32, I don't see why you wouldn't. I have him ranked at, I think, quarterback 29 in Dynasty. So it's not like a huge value, but I think I'd scoop him before I scoop some of these older aging guys. I think I have him ranked right ahead of Ryan Tannehill, which I know sounds crazy at this moment, but if Howell keeps this job for an extended period of time, then I think that is a good value.
When I did projections on Howell, I projected him initially to play 16 games as the starting quarterback, and where he ended up, I was pretty surprised because it was good, very good, and that's the thing. If he's the quarterback here, I mean they've got talent in the wide receiver room, in the backfield. Eric Bieniemy's bringing that Chiefs offense over. He can run a little bit enough to maybe get you a little bit on the fantasy on the ground. And so I think that there is a lot here in this package if he's the quarterback for fantasy, and you'll surprise some people. I do think that if he's out there.
Yeah, I the way I look at Howell is his ADP makes him draftable. QB 32, at that point, you just take a shot on your third quarterback. And if he does exceed expectations, you have a stopgap guy. Let's say you draft an older quarterback too, or whatever the case may be. I have him right around that Tannehill here, tier 2. Like, if you don't feel comfortable with Tannehill there, I understand the how area. Running back room, a little crowded, boys. You're looking at Brian Robinson at running back 34, Antonio Gibson. I've been touting the Gibson train probably really early this offseason because Eric Bieniemy coming over. You're looking at could have standalone value, pass catching, but we've been touting Antonio Gibson in that role for a long time, and this coaching staff just doesn't. We haven't had Bieniemy there, but this other coaching staff really struggles there. Then they're talking about bringing Kareem Hunt in to ruin everybody's dreams. They drafted Chris Rodriguez, who is literally Brian Robinson. They are the same runner. And so, for me at running back 38, it's creeping up right now with Gibson. So it's starting to get to that point where I don't necessarily think he's a value anymore. And I know it's crazy to sound, but out of that room, Gibson for me is the guy I'm drafting. Jeff, are you going anywhere else?
No, I'm not. I initially thought that I might be in on Brian Robinson because I think that he might dominate the carries portion, but they did not throw the ball at all to Brian Robinson last year. And then now Bieniemy's coming over, bringing that offense from the Chiefs, and the Chiefs did not throw the ball at all to Isaiah Pacheco last year. And so if Brian Robinson is in that Isaiah Pacheco role and he's in an offense that's not the Kansas City Chiefs offense and he's not getting goal line looks because they're not that good, then you're really kind of stuck there on a player that you're just never going to feel good putting him into your lineup. Whereas Antonio Gibson, if he does grab that Jerick McKinnon role, you're putting him in your lineup every single week.
Yeah. Jerick McKinnon finished RB20 last year. And I think that is his clear role. And I think when you look at the makeup of this team, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to get a little creative too. I think, I still like Curtis Samuel as an option, but I think that Gibson could run some 2-back sets and have Gibson out there just running routes downfield or toss him in the slot, motion him out, things like that. I do have faith that Bieniemy is going to get creative with him. And so at RB38, I'm still fairly in. I think you're right that it's starting to creep up to the point of discomfort when you're drafting him because of the unknown, but I feel more confident that Bieniemy will want to use a back like him because let's be honest, we haven't seen Bieniemy with a back like Brian Robinson or Chris Rodriguez. So I think the closest thing is Pacheco, but even he has speed and, is explosive. Whereas those two guys aren't. So it could also just be Antonio Gibson's show by the end of the season. So I think that's a good value.
And Gibson put up 2 top 15 finishes last year when Brian Robinson wasn't there, and they did utilize him. He does do it when he gets volume. It's just the question is if he's going to get it or not. And from a dynasty aspect, I really feel like Gibson's the only one that holds a ton of value moving forward, even after the following year. He has a skill set teams are going to like. There's going to be teams out there that want his services. Wide receiver room. Jahan Dotson is the truth. The truthers are out there for our Jahan Dotson. Wide receiver 33 is where his ADP's at. But some people really like Jahan Dotson. But real quick, Jeff, Jahan Dotson or George Pickens? Who you want?
Jahan Dotson or George Pickens? I'd probably still take George Pickens, I guess. I don't know.
That was depends. You having a colonoscopy? What's going on over there?
Depends if they're cheap enough, I guess.
What do you think?
I have Dotson ranked above Pickens, so I have them at 26 and 27. So that's a very good question on your end, but I do have Dotson ranked above Pickens.
So you're taking Dotson now? You just flipped? Yes. Is that okay?
All right. Because I just looked at my rankings and actually thought about this with a clear head instead of in the moment. And but I do have them 26 and 27. So
yeah,
close, which is bullish compared to the 33.
I have Dotson ranked ahead of this. I have him well ahead of George Pickens. When you toss on the film from last year, I had questions about Dotson. I wasn't a huge fan of him. I don't have shares from rookie drafts, so I was kind of out at his ADP, but I think I was wrong. I think he's going to be a very good receiver. And when you look at the dynasty perspective, Terry McLaurin's already getting up there in age. I know it seems like he's only been in the league for a few years, and that's because that's true. He came out as an old senior. And so I think when you look at what this offense looks like, and I know 3 years is tough to project, but Terry McLaurin will be, 30, I think he's 27, 26, something like that, 27. So he'll be 30 and you'll be looking at Jahan Dotson, probably, wide receiver 1 of that team. So yeah, I'm fairly in. Wide receiver 33 I have him at, let's see, 30. So once again, not too far off. I guess I rank by ADP now. Who knew? But yeah, I like him.
Yeah, I have Dotson at 30. I have Pickens at 33. So like we're all pretty close into that area. I promise I did these rankings before we posted these things. Like I this is just kind of there. Anybody, I mean, yeah, Terry, I kind of avoided Terry just because that age, unknown quarterback play. What's that going to look like? And again, Terry's one of those guys you draft and you drive him off the lot and his value shifts. And I struggle with that. There's so many good young wide receivers that you could draft with upside that definitely don't. Terry's a tough guy for me to draft in Dynasty. I have a hard time clicking that submit button for him. Anything else from the Commanders? Anything that we need to touch? No? Jeff, you got
curious
something?
about the tight ends because I don't know. We saw the tight ends usage in Kansas City and Cole Turner, I think kind of I'm curious.
One day.
Logan Thomas has been told he's getting the Travis Kelce role is what the reports say. So yeah, I don't think he can do it, but he's getting the role.
I was going to say.
Good luck, bud.
You can identify a role for someone. Whether they can perform that role is an entirely different area. To Jeff's point, though, I think identifying who the tight end is going to be in this offense is probably a safe for a year at least, right? Until this coaching staff gets fired. Yeah, I think you could look at Logan Thomas has been getting talked about all offseason, but you're not comfortable. Again, with the ADP, I guess you could be late round area. I guess when you're drafting some of these guys that don't have the ADP that you necessarily, it's non-existent. You're just looking for tight ends to finish like top 15, 16. If you can sneak in there with touchdowns and then you're happy with it. No, I think that's a good point. I love Cole Turner. You guys know that I was really out of Cole Turner when he's like a junior in college. He has the ability if he just gets out there and because he's a receiver. Okay, we're gonna get a hot take. He doesn't remind me of Kels, but if anybody could maybe do like a mini role of Kelsey, it's him. He could do it.
Yeah, he's a good yak player too. So
yeah, I'm gonna kill you guys if you clip that and tell them to use that on socials. Yeah, don't do that. All right, let's go. So there's NFC East. Anybody want to make a prediction who's gonna win it? It's the Cowboys. All right, let's move on. NFC West. Let's go over to the NFC West. Let's look at this. Let's start with the Niners because the Niners are gonna be tough to talk about with us. So let's go over the quarterbacks first. We got Brock Purdy at quarterback 24, Trey Lance at quarterback 25. So they're going back to back. The Lance ADP is all across the board. I've seen him go from 13 to 25. Like he's over there. Darnold is also getting drafted at quarterback 39. Running backs, we have CMC at running back 3, Elijah Mitchell at running back 48. Wide receivers, we have Ayuk at wide receiver 28, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 19. Then you have Juwan Jennings and Danny Gray in there. George Kittle's tight end 5. Cameron Latu getting some ADP, tight end 36. Jeff's boy. Let's talk about quarterbacks. We got to go to the quarterbacks here. This is a fairly pro Lance show. Like we think that he has talent, at least me and Christian on this side of the room. I know Jeff is too. I forgot. Jeff's been buying him everywhere. So when we're looking at this, the ADP shocks me when I look at it initially because I feel like Lance is a smash at quarterback 25 based on value, right? And in moving forward, what he can be, I think it just comes down to do you believe in him or not? Because people that don't believe him is going to keep pushing him down there. He's a smash at 25, right? If he's going that late.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Every draft that I'm in, I end up taking him way before I'm just much higher on him. I guess that just the tools, the package. I mean, I don't know. You guys know me. I believe that every single year that there's that one quarterback that is a year or two into his career or 2 or 3 even, where everybody fades him because of circumstances that are kind of outside his control a little bit, and then things fall into place, and all of a sudden he's going in the top 10 in Superflex drafts. I mean, we've seen it with Josh Allen. We've seen it with Jalen Hurts was kind of there a little bit last year where people just didn't want to buy in at all. And it's just Justin Fields maybe a little bit. And so, I think that Lance kind of lines up to be one of those guys.
Yep. Smash it, QB 25. I think the thing to remember with Lance from a dynasty perspective is even if Brock Purdy does win this job, Trey Lance is going to get an opportunity somewhere because and the evidence of that is the Sam Darnold ADP at QB 39. People are still drafting Sam Darnold, and I know that's more as a high value backup, but you look a year ago, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield were going probably in that 24 to 30 range then. And so I while those two didn't hit on that, they're still getting opportunities. And so I think if Purdy is the answer, I think the 49ers do move off of Lance at some point, whether that's after this year, during this year, who knows. I still believe that Lance is going to win the job, but I think if you believe that, you're drafting him well before that, the QB 25. If you don't believe that, you still should draft him at QB 25, knowing that he could go to the Vikings in a year or something like that. Like, there are so many opportunities for Lance to be really good.
Yeah, if you're at Lance anywhere from quarterback 20 to 27 in that range, you're going to be able to get back that value. You're going to be able to move him because the quarterback situation in the NFL is so bad, everybody. Like, and in next year's class, is the college football show, we talk about it. There's two guys. There's May and Caleb Williams, Drake May from North Carolina, Caleb Williams. And after that, there's a lot of question marks about that quarterback 3. There's going to be teams that need guys. Like Sam Howell started, and he was in the 5th round. You can't tell me Trey Lance is not going to go 3rd overall pick. He's not Zach Wilson, in my opinion, and he never was in that category. That was a mistake on the Jets' part. Purdy, to me, is I'm not drafting Brock Purdy. I can't do it in my heart. I can't do it there in terms of where that value's at. Any thoughts on Purdy at all?
It
depends
for me.
Yeah, acquisition price has already kind of been there. I mean, if you got him on your roster, good job. If you're adding him to your roster, good luck.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put it. I like that. We're gonna clip that one. All right, let's go to wide receiver room then. I like Brandon Ayuk. I'm a kind of a proponent of Ayuk this year. The thing I have with Ayuk from a dynasty perspective, I think Debo's had one good year. He had, that year that he was used kind of as a running back when they needed to. They don't need to do that anymore with CMC there. After that, he struggled. Last year, he said, man, my tape was really bad. That came from his mouth. He was like, I was out of shape. Ayuk has a chance to really kind of solidify himself as the one option in this. But even if they move on from Debo after this year, I mean, there's a case to be made that somehow they try to get off that contract, whatever the case may be. Ayuk could be the wide receiver 1 on this roster. So, like, that's where I have him. Like, I like that value at wide receiver 28 because I think he's going to outperform that even with Samuel on the roster. So, like, I really like that. Where's your take with the wide receiver room, Christian?
If you're looking at the 19th wide receiver and you're choosing to draft Ayuk before Debo Samuel, that would be my take. I have Ayuk well ahead of Debo in Dynasty. I think, the tape last year was bad, and to your point, he has had one good year, and it was mostly on the back of him being a rushing threat. They added Christian McCaffrey. I know that, like, everyone thinks that Debo's going to have the same exact role, but they didn't play a whole lot together last year. Debo was hurt through most of that stretch. And so I am super, super out on Debo. I'm trying to move off of him in every league that I have shares and things like that. And I'm trying to move into Ayuk because I think that when you look at Ayuk's strengths, if Lance hits, and even sometimes with Purdy, it was working, I think Ayuk can win downfield, which is, I think, what the Kyle Shanahan offense is going to start to transition to, is less guys like Debo and more guys that can just ball down the field. So
Debo can win down the field.
He can.
So the first 8 games of the 2021 season, and that's when the Debo role really emerged. Debo Samuel had 882 receiving yards those first 8 games, and he only had 6 rushing attempts that entire stretch. He was winning downfield consistently, and he was a problem for defensive backs. And that's the other thing, that if you rewind to that Super Bowl season from 2019, I believe that Super Bowl was, towards that end of that stretch through the playoffs, he was a man. He's a presence downfield. And so I think that it's some adjustment. I think that he was obviously, like he admitted, he wasn't in shape last year, and I've been off Debo as well at the same time, the valuations that I've seen out there, because that role has disappeared. But it's important to note that before he was even in that role, we had half a season of him not in that role, and he was dominant as a downfield wide receiver, because he's such a handle. He's so much for defensive backs to handle when he gets downfield, when he's running the ball downfield with a running start and coming across the middle, those types of areas. He can do that, and he's done that in the past. And so I am curious. I do think that I understand Ayuk, and I think Ayuk's a very talented player, but it's interesting to me because I think I hear every single fantasy analyst, and I was even said in a piece that's coming out in Football Guys that Debo Samuel is a major fade at ADP, but he keeps getting drafted at ADP. And so somebody's drafting him. But I do think that with an offseason to settle his mind, to reset, to prepare for that role downfield and to move back into that role, I think that we're throwing a lot of dirt on Debo a lot too early.
I don't think it's like dirt. I think it's like yeah, I don't know, like grass feeder a little bit. Like just like I'm worried because when I draft him there, are you really going to get value back from that wide receiver 19 though? Like
I mean,
if you
that's
draft
again, I think that's an aggressive valuation.
okay.
But I mean, people are taking him there.
Because he's almost to me in leagues that I have, I can't get rid of him. So like I need him to have a good first 4 or 5 weeks because there is no way that like I did see a trade today, I believe in a dynasty league where they got Debo and a 25 first for DK Metcalf. You know, DK is a tough one right now. We're going to talk about him obviously here in a second. So like if you can get a first back, I don't necessarily hate that deal, to be honest with you. Like they were getting a little bit of hate, but like I you know, looking at the tiers and where that comes from, it's not a terrible deal.
Yeah, the last point, Debo can win downfield, but they transitioned him out of that role because they have Ayuk, who I think is better at winning downfield. I mean, Ayuk's ability to separate is something. Now, if they transition to almost all of the offense in terms of the wide receivers are attacking from a downfield perspective, because now you do have Christian McCaffrey to do all the things on the underneath, and you've still got Kittle over the middle, then I think we're looking at a situation where it could be one or the other each week. But once again, I'll go with the younger guy. You know, Debo's already 27 too. It's the Terry McLaurin thing here. So
anything on Kittle before we move on? 5's pretty
football.
high. He's good at football. I just don't. As far as like dynasty aspects, I have a hard time drafting him as ADP, his current ADP right now.
Yeah.
We
All right.
talked about him on that tight end show. So
yeah, we dived into tight
Watch that
ends.
one.
Definitely go watch that. It's an amazing show. It's one of our best. But real quick before we move on to the Seahawks, draft Elijah Mitchell. Just do it in spite of Jeff. Every time you draft Elijah Mitchell this offseason, send a DM to Jeff or send it to me. I will make sure he gets it. All right, that's how we're going to do
him
it.
all the time. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you're a hater. All right, let's go to the Seahawks. Let's go to Seattle. Let's talk about them. Geno Smith locked up the contract extension. He's going as quarterback 21 in Dynasty ADP, but I have seen him go as high as quarterback 15, 16 in that range. Running backs, this is the area we're going to get into. Ken Walker going as running back 8. Zach Charbonnet, running back 24. DJ Dallas, Kenny McIntosh. Wide receivers, DK is at wide receiver 13. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 47. JSN is wide receiver 16. And then we have Noah Fant, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson, those guys there. Let's go to the running back room. Jeff, how are you attacking? If you let's say you're going to draft one of these guys, you know, are you just going to go to the cheapest with Charbonnet, running back 24? You're going to get the volume, maybe some red zone touches, or do you believe in Ken Walker's talent that he could be the guy?
I'm going to go Charbonnet. We saw Walker in a dominant role last year, and the efficiency was terrible. And then they turn around and they take Zach Charbonnet in the second round. I don't understand the spread on this, to be honest with you. It makes almost no sense to me whatsoever. It tells me that people still think that Ken Walker is going to be the dominant ball carrier, and Charbonnet is really just kind of a backup. When we've talked about it over the last couple of months. Once that draft pick happened, you flash back to our draft recap show. I mean, there's a chance that Charbonnet has the goal line work and the passing down work, and Walker is just kind of stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I think there's definitely this gap should be closed. I do have Walker ahead of Charbonnet, but I have Walker valued worse than RB8, and I have Charbonnet valued better than RB24. So that's the guy that I'll go with here.
I'm going to be the lone Walker guy in this show. And I don't know how this happened because I was not really very high on Walker coming out in terms of that. I just believe in the talent and where he's at. And I did put him on one of my articles for Football Guys when I talked about the running back. Like, I still think he can be that anchor running back type volume area. And I don't believe Charbonnet is a better pass catcher. I don't care what anybody says. I've watched these guys for 4 years. I watched Charbonnet in college there. And I understand like the box score. I know he got more, receptions, targets, those type of things there. I'm still with the Walker train. I think that Walker I know it's vibes. I'm vibing today. So like the Walker thing for me, if I can get Walker in the 4th round, I come at the 408 in a startup as my running back 1. I'm okay with that. And I don't care what Jeff says. I will take him there and I will roll with him, and I can go get some of these guys later. But I am okay with grabbing Walker at the 4-8 when he was going in the 2nd round in January. And if I can get that 2-round thing, I'm okay with that. I also am not high on Charbonnet. So that's also where this comes from. This comes from not a disdain, but just like I think Charbonnet's fine, but I don't think he's not a non-replaceable guy. And I do think we have question marks, or at least I do, about Geno Smith. I think they are going to utilize their rushing attack a little bit more than people think. And so I do think there's some volume there that people not necessarily buying into, because I do think they're going to throw the ball with JSN and those guys. I think the rushing attacks can be a little bit more dominant.
Yeah, that's my expectation. I think this defense will be a little bit better. This was a very young team last year, and I think that they will gel and grow a little bit. And Geno Smith, the wheels really fell off at the end of last year, and I think that says a lot. That I think that people are taking it as, well, they added JSN and he had so many touchdowns. But when you look at the way they played towards the end of last year, I think the drafting of Charbonnet at the position that they did says more about what they think about Geno Smith and what they want this offense to be than the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the wide receiver room fast. We talked about DK. He's going as wide receiver 13. Where are you at on that, Christian? Wide receiver 13, a little tough, maybe. So you deciding, do you take DK or JSN? I feel like it's a pretty clear JSN pick there in Dynasty.
I don't. So I think where I think there's going to be a delay in JSN production, in my opinion. And so I know wide receiver value tends to hold okay with guys like that. But I do think Tyler Lockett is very much so still involved in this offense. He was remarkable last year. Wide receiver 47 is kind of crazy to me. That's the value here. But between DK and JSN, I think they do have very clear roles. I think Geno is really good at throwing downfield. And if they get DK back to that role that I think they wanted him in, and that is more of a downfield attack, I think you're going to see the DK that we saw in the years with Russell Wilson. And so I'm still pretty in on DK. I've got him inside my top 10, I think, in Dynasty still. And then I have JSN kind of on that like 12 to 15 range, where I'd like to see the production early, but I do think we're going to have to hit pause on him being a dominant fantasy performer to start.
You saying wavelength there, Jeff, or no?
Yeah. I think that people are going to get pretty frustrated with Jackson Smith and Jigba, to be honest with you. And I think that you're going to have buying opportunities here next year, the year after, because I don't know. I don't think that he's going to come in and be the alpha of this receiver room, despite whatever some people might believe.
You going to go, Christian, or
no? No. Just going to leave it at that.
So I think we're going to disagree again on that a little bit. I think JSN can. I think he's been, I think the reality is, I think he's been kind of dismissed a lot, even in a college career, where like his talent. I think he comes in and he's more talented than Tyler Lockett. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think he's going to step in, and he might struggle early, but I do think that he can kind of take over this room. The question for me, it isn't the talent of JSN, it's the talent of Geno Smith. I think that's my biggest takeaway from it. It's I struggle with that, but I do think he can earn targets, especially in the slot, if he can take over that role. I think, but again, this offense isn't one I'm necessarily buying into, and I might be the only one out there that's not doing that. But I struggle with this offense, especially with Geno there. All right, let's go to the Rams. So let's go over there. Weird season for the Rams last year. Obviously, a ton of injuries. They have Matthew Stafford going as a quarterback 29 right now in Dynasty, 34 years old. Stetson Bennett, I cannot believe we're saying his name on a Dynasty show. But Stetson Bennett, quarterback 40, so not too far behind. Cam Akers, running back 21. Zach Evans, running back 56. Kyron Williams is in there too. Wide receivers, we got Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Ben Skronek, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell. Tight end, Tyler Higbee, Hunter Long, Davis Allen, Bryson Hopkins. They got a bunch of options there. Jeff, I'm gonna let you talk about somebody. What are your expectations for this offense? Who do you think maybe could stand out? Fade? What do you got?
Cooper Kupp's my wide receiver 1. I think, that might be a spicy take, but I think that overall I still probably put Jefferson wide receiver 1 in redraft. I'm talking about here, not Dynasty, to be clear. But no. That Kupp, the production that you saw Kupp last year when he was healthy was still outpacing where Justin Jefferson ended up. And so as long as you see a return to health, I think that Kupp probably, if you're buying him if you can get him at wide receiver 14, I think Kupp is a nice buy in Dynasty if you're a contender right now.
Oh, yeah. He's a smash buy. During rookie drafts, he's going for like the 109. That's pretty good value. And he's still a value. At wide receiver 14, there's some guys that you can maneuver and go get them. Like Kupp is definitely there. And we talked about this too. I've talked about with the tiers episode. Him and Adams are kind of going back to back. Devontae, I would rather have Kupp twofold over that, because I do think his game definitely transitions. Christian, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think all of these guys are valued fairly accurately, which is weird. We don't traditionally get that. Cam Akers, I'm a little lower, but I understand the appeal. Zach Evans, I'm a little higher on because I do think that he does get a little bit of work this year. But yeah, I mean, Van Jefferson's probably like the best value in terms of what you could get in return after 2023. It seems like he is going to be their wide receiver too. And I think Skoranek and Nakua will get on the field a little bit, but I'm not really super into the idea of buying in on this offense with McVay potentially retiring. He's having a kid now. And so I think that's going to factor into that decision that we've already heard. And then what happens to this roster, because right now this roster is pretty rough. I wouldn't put it past them to go out and get another wide receiver for this room or another piece on defense and make them a little more competitive. But I think they're fully in the let's go get Caleb Williams camp right now.
Yeah. Matthew Stafford, quarterback 29, worth a shot in Dynasty, 2 years.
I'd rather have Sam Howell, I think. I need to flip them in my rankings. I have them 28 and 29 right now with Howell behind, and this show has made me want to flip them. So
I'm glad we can provide you with that. Yeah. Hey, one of these days we don't have time today, but Sean McVay, you're winning at life, my man. All right, let's go to the Cardinals. Let's look at Arizona. Last team here. Whew. Okay. Kyler Murray, quarterback 12, Colt McCoy, Clayton Tune's undrafted, but there was reports that he could be winning that job. So Clayton Tune truthers, congratulations. James Conner, running back 40. He is everybody's favorite, I guess, sleeper out there in terms of running back position. Keontae Ingram is still there. This is a really bad offense when you go through it, by the way. Marquise Brown, wide receiver 31. Rondale Moore, wide receiver 68. Greg Dortch. Michael Wilson, wide receiver 75. Shout out to Jeff Bell. He's a contributor here at Football Guys. He was really on at Michael Wilson early, and he got kind of crapped on a little bit on social media saying Michael Wilson wasn't going to be a thing. Well, look at that. He's getting drafted now. So good job. Jeff's pretty smart. And then tight ends, Zach Ertz, Trey McBride, literally getting drafted, back to back there in terms of where their value's at. Jeff, who do you want to talk about? Where do you go with this? Do you for me, Marquise Brown is a value right now because I think he's going to get targets. I just think that he's going to be a target getter. Where are you at?
So I don't really believe in the talent, but Keontae Ingram is a 23-year-old running back on a team that is definitely rebuilding, and James Conner could be a trade potential asset. And running back 72, I feel like it's just a complete afterthought. If you're looking at Keontae Ingram as a guy that, I talked about Malik Davis, but Keontae Ingram's another guy that's kind of lingering out there on some waivers that you can grab him. And would anybody be shocked if by Halloween Keontae Ingram is the Cardinals starting running back and James Conner is either injured or playing for somebody else, and you're kind of plugging Keontae Ingram down the stretch? And the other thing too on Michael Wilson, I think it's important to note that he was brought in by this new regime, and the other receivers were under the Cliff Kingsbury, the air raid offense, and so I don't know Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch consistently winning outside in this offensive scheme that I think is going to more closely resemble things like the Cleveland Browns ran. I don't think that that's conducive to their games potentially. I know a lot of people are buzzing about them because of the numbers that they put up when they were on the field in an air raid offense that is very different. And whereas like Michael Wilson wasn't brought in by this regime, and he could be another guy that by midseason, if this team is just completely rebuilding and looking to the future, Michael Wilson could be on the field every single play. And the other thing too, I do expect more 12 personnel with these two tight ends.
Which is a good transition point to Kyler at QB 12 being a little, I wouldn't say like an overvalue, but Kyler very much so has run one offense since college. And so as they transition to a new offense, I think I just talked about the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I would not be shocked if Kyler Murray is not a Cardinal after this year. And I'm not certain what that will do to his value. It doesn't seem like they're setting things up well for him to succeed after this year. So, to your point about Keontae Ingram, I think that's very true. I think James Conner is going to accumulate value, but I think that's a 1-year thing. So I think that's a nice buy for a contender, because I do think that you can get some nice production out of him this year, because it's going to be inefficient crap touches, but he's probably going to get a lot of them if he's healthy. And then the tight ends quickly. I mean, Trey McBride was my tight end 1 last year. I think, as Zach Ertz continues to get older, Trey McBride looks like a guy that maybe we don't get that breakout this year because of that transition period. But that's a guy that I'll gladly take at tight end 18, preferably as my tight end 2 or even 3, and then just stash him for a year and hope that this offense does come to fruition in 2024.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kyler. I see a lot of people out there touting Kyler a little bit and saying he's the biggest smash buy in Dynasty. I don't know if I'm that high on that buy. I think he's good, and I do understand that we've seen him, finish as a top 5 guy, but I don't we've also, I think that's one of those things when you're looking at narratives. That's a long time ago narrative. This is recent where we've seen him play. I don't think that price is baked in yet. I still think he's getting valued as that, and people are just kind of pivoting off of it. So I don't necessarily think we've hit our low point on Kyler. What if Clayton Tune comes in there and looks really good in the Cardinals offense, and whatever the case may be, or I if I'm their staff, I'm definitely taking Caleb Williams over Kyler Murray all day. And so that, and again, kind of like the Trey Lance discussion, Murray's going to get a shot somewhere. We understand that. So that's where it's built into, but I don't know if his price is as low as it's going to be. So you might want to just wait on that. Yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's there. Any love for Rondale Moore? That's like social media's favorite, guy. Any love there?
I like Rondale. I think he's a good receiver. I think, he has to have a certain role, and that's what sucks about his game. And I think Jeff's completely right that I think it will be a struggle for him to be on the field. It's really funny to me that Marquise Brown complained about the offense in Baltimore, and then they're kind of transitioning his new team's offense to that exact thing. But I think that Rondale's probably going to find success elsewhere. I don't see a path forward with the Cardinals.
I was going to say, I don't know that Rondale Moore's on this roster week 1, to be honest with you. I think that he's a great candidate, that if he shows he's healthy in camp, I think that he's a great trade candidate.
Rondale Moore looked good in Baltimore, but that's just my opinion in that new offense that they have.
Rondale or Zay Flowers, and age notwithstanding, just talent-wise, Rondale, Zay Flowers as prospects. Who'd you like more?
Oh, I was a guy, so I say Zay. I was never high on Rondale, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jeff just said Michael Wilson. That's where he's at. All right. So we appreciate you guys here. I hope this helps. We want to make sure we go more Dynasty focused. We heard your critiques, and we're definitely trying to make sure we target that. We appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave the comments below. What are you thinking? Will you be buying Kyler Murray? Do you have any trade questions? You can always find us on social media, but also here on the channel. That's what we're here to help you with. So we'll be back next week on June 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell.
And I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College Football Show.